Immigration time out?
The United States is a nation of immigrants, and now, more than ever, more immigrants live in the U.S. today than at any time in our 221-year history. Last year alone, over 1.25 million foreigners, legal and illegal, decided to call America their new home. For some, that's good news. Immigration is a key component to what gives America energy and originality. Not so fast, say others.
Hurry and let it! Hurry and let it!
They think the current immigrant process is inherently unfair and, more importantly, harmful to the commonweal. Immigration today is a haphazard mishmash of outdated and conflicting laws. In its Byzantine nature, second only to the United States tax code, they say. The solution? A moratorium. End immigration. Then craft a new, coherent, and equitable immigration policy and put it into law. Question: should immigration to the United States be suspended for now? We'll ask Dan Stein, Executive Director of the Federation for American Immigration Reform, and Frank Sharry, Executive Director of the National Immigration Forum.
From Washington, D.C., John McLaughlin's One-on-One, an unrehearsed probing inside exchange with and about the people making the news. Sponsored by Chase. The right relationship is everything. And by the Archer Daniels Midland Company, ADM, supermarket to the world. Here's the host, John McLaughlin.
Add to the melting pot, put a lid on it for now. We'll be talking about immigration, but first, let's take a look at our guests' distinguished profiles.
Born Hartford, 41 years of age, wife Rosa, 2 daughters, Catholic, Princeton University, B.A., American Council for National Service, Arkansas, Director of Refugee Services, 6 years. Centro Presente, a legal center for Central American refugees. Cambridge, Massachusetts, Executive Director, 3 years. National Immigration Forum, Washington, D.C., a pro-immigration advocacy organization, Executive Director, 7 years and currently. Hobbies: starting player on championship over 35 soccer team. Francis Peter Sharry. Born Washington, D.C., 41 years of age, wife Sharon, 2 children, Episcopalian, Republican, Indiana University, B.A., Catholic University of America School of Law, Doctor of Jurisprudence. U.S. House of Representatives, Select Committee on Narcotics Use and Control, staff member, 4 years. Immigration Reform Institute, founded 1984. Federation for American Immigration Reform. FAIR. Executive Director, 9 years and currently. Hobbies: history, trombone playing. Daniel Allen Stein.
Dan Stein, what's the argument in favor of a moratorium, a timeout on immigration?
Look, John, we've had the highest sustained level of immigration in our history for the last 20 years. The numbers and backlogs keep growing. We have the highest level of foreign-born in our country since 1930. Immigration's out of control. The system doesn't work. Immigration service is in complete disarray. And the only way we're going to get the numbers down is with a timeout, comprehensive moratorium to get our own house in order.
Don't the polls support what Dan is saying, Frank?
No. In fact, there's a big shift in favor of immigration now. Look, the economy's going well. People are beginning to distinguish between legal immigration, an orderly process by which people play by the rules, and illegal immigration. There's a right way to come and a wrong way to come. There's also a right way and a wrong way to deal with illegal immigration. So I think we're finally having the kind of debate where we can make sense out of our policy.
What about the polls, Dan? Dan?
Polls show 80% of Americans want immigration cut or stopped altogether. And it's true Americans are tolerant.
So he's
as
wrong
they
on the
should be.
polls.
He's wrong on the polls. What he's mistaking are polls measuring polls measuring people's tolerance of people who are different, which is high, and that's good, with people's desire to get the numbers down.
All right.
Get the numbers down.
If the polls, as you say, and we'll accept that for the sake of the argument here, whether it's verifiable or not, if it's true, why don't the politicians follow suit? Why aren't the politicians doing anything with it?
What we have is a disconnect. We have strong populist support for an immigration moratorium, but we've got a special interest feeding frenzy working on Capitol Hill. Whether it's John Wang and foreign money, cheap labor interests and others from around the country, ethnic lobbies that want to bring in more relatives without end, those lobbies are intense, they're motivated, immigration lawyers coordinate them, and they want to keep the numbers high and growing. The public wants it brought down, but they don't have that many representatives in Washington pushing for it.
Is he saying that if politicians, congressmen and senators have large ethnic blocs within their constituencies, that they respect those blocs and that votes really tells the story in which way they move or desist from moving on immigration reform?
Now, one thing politicians are good at is reading their constituents because they want to get reelected. Last year in the Senate, the vote was 80-20 against cuts in legal immigration, and it was 97-3 in favor of cracking down on illegal immigration.
On a commitment that they would be brought back up this year.
The politicians did what the American people wanted. Get tough on illegal immigration, preserve legal immigration. Dan doesn't like it, but that's what the American people want.
Is there a racial dimension to this? Suppose the record number of immigrants coming to this country were coming from primarily Caucasian European countries, let's say. Would the public still be opposed to high levels of immigration in your view, Dan?
I don't know, you're asking me a hypothetical. If McLaughlins were getting off the boat in big numbers, people might have a slightly different perception of the issue, but I think the bottom line issue is the numbers are too high. You know, the president came out and he said, look, in 30, 40 years, we're going to have diversity, no ethnic majority in this country, and that's a good thing, and we should ram it down our throats. Most Americans aren't afraid of people who are different, but if we are going to engage in a radical restructuring of the ethnic base of the population of the country, shouldn't we at least debate it?
Is there a racist dimension to this?
I don't think it's overblown. I think it's overblown by too many people. I think most folks want an orderly process. We are a nation of immigrants. They want to accept close family members. They want to rescue a few refugees. They want to have skilled people come in and infuse this country with energy. For 300 years it's worked, and they want to continue a legal immigration process.
You've got two big problems that you face. Number one, the nation is relatively prosperous, and therefore it's kind of a let everything ride for a while.
Right. Bring in the cheap labor.
Right. Number two, the other problem you had is that the mantra in this country is diversity. And that, of course, has been promulgated to a great extent by the Clinton administration and to some extent by the media. Diversity is good.
But diversity for its own sake is not necessarily a good thing. There's not any evidence of that. Unity is what is good and makes a nation tick. If we lose our essential core culture, basis as a bastion of Western civilization, we don't know what we're going to become. And we are too cavalier about throwing away the cultural anchor that is made us proud.
We're throwing it away. I am still not clear on precisely where the culture is. Those two points that I mentioned, prosperity and diversity is the mantra, it's the in thing, would argue for opening the doors. On the other hand, the polls, I think, on balance, do reflect a concern on the part of the American people that the doors are open too wide. But where does it settle down? Where's the momentum?
The momentum right now is for maintaining our legal immigration system in a generous way and to deal effectively and responsibly with illegal immigration. That is where the consensus is. And the fact is that while diversity is seen as a good thing, people want immigrants to assimilate and to share our values, and
John,
they are.
But John, what we're dealing, it's really about 1910 again, okay? Big money, special interests are dominating the issue. They don't want the issue debated as against this broad populist movement that would like to see it brought down. Some Republicans can't even walk into the state of California without getting booed because they won't deal with immigration.
Okay, I want to get back to the political aspect for a moment. There's one Republican who's grown quite prominent, and he's very articulate. He's a strong speaker, and he's rising in the ranks, and his name is what? And he's in favor of opening the doors.
His name is Spencer Abraham. He's a freshman Republican from Michigan.
Yeah. Now, what is his position on immigration?
He's essentially a fundraiser masquerading as a senator. He sees the immigration issue as a way of promising visas in exchange for campaign contributions. And yesterday he held a hearing on a Korean visa waiver program for tourists. Why? Because Korean interests want to be
Now,
able to come into the country.
are you speaking in macro-political interest, namely that the Republicans are going to lose any hope they have of holding the Congress or of getting the White House because there is such a flood of immigrants who vote Democratic, and he wants to move that Democratic...
He's one of the out-of-touch Republicans who's selling the soul of the Republican Party either for cheap labor, financial contributions, or pandering to ethnic groups that frankly want immigration brought down.
How is he being greeted by his constituents?
I don't think very well. He stopped talking about it in the state of Michigan, and somebody's talking about running against him.
A question to you on this. You know that Peter Brimelow is an authority on this subject.
That's true.
You would say he's probably a pseudo-authority because you don't agree with his views, but he's recognized as an authority. Peter Brimelow is now saying that in the year 2008, all hope will be lost for an indefinite period of time, possibly permanently, by the Republicans of even holding on to a majority in the House or the Senate, or getting the White House, because the demographics will be such that the immigrant population of this country will be controlling the elections. True or false? False. He holds that, first of all, does he not?
Yes, and he's arguing against a prevailing view that's taken hold in the Republican Party that the anti-immigrant posture of the GOP over the last 2 years backfired in the '96 election.
Did it?
And
No,
it did.
not a
Cubans defected. Vietnamese defected. Conservative Asians defected. Latinos who used to vote 45% for Reagan and Bush voted for Clinton.
You mean the Cubans in New Jersey voting for Torricelli?
They did.
They did
in Florida.
because of the position he took. What about the Cubans in Florida?
Ronald Reagan used to pull 85% of the Cubans. Dole pulled 45%. Why? Because he was identified with a get tough on immigrants posture that blew up in the Republican space.
Not because of immigration. If it backfired, it was because of welfare. Many immigrants are coming in expecting welfare. And one thing this Congress has shown us is the myth that immigrants don't come in and want welfare is baloney. Congress is having to recapitulate because of the clamor of immigrants to get back on welfare. But there is no evidence politically that if Congress passed a moratorium on immigration, brought the numbers down to 200,000 a year, a more normal level, that there would be any backlash, and every politician who's pushed that from Lamar Smith on down has been reelected handily, and Pete Wilson and others. There is public support when we have political leaders who won't deal with the real
How long
issues.
do you want the moratorium to last?
Remember, John,
how long do you want it to last?
At least 5 years. You got to restructure the numbers to get the numbers down.
We'll be right back with Dan Stein and Frank Sharry. I'm sure you took note of the fact that Peter Brimelow wrote a piece for the National Review. Where's the National Review on this issue?
Well, they're in the anti-immigrant camp.
Where are the other Republican influentials?
Well, let's see who's pro-immigration in the Republican Party. George W. Bush, governor of Texas. Colin Powell, Rudy Giuliani, Dick Armey, Newt Gingrich, Spencer Abraham. Right down the line, the top leaders of the party are realizing that Jack Kemp, Bill Bennett.
What about the editorial community?
Weekly Standard is pro. Wall Street Journal, the most pro-immigration publication in the country.
Where's Fred Barnes?
Fred Barnes, pro-immigration, right down the line.
What do you have to say to that?
I think it's easy for cheap labor interests and big Wall Street interests to just avoid the issue or try to keep the... Look, those big interests want immigration to come in at the rate they do, so wages stay low. They've been flat throughout a tremendous economic growth period. And one of the reasons, immigration. The big money interests don't want to have to raise interest rates, and they would if wages went up. So as long as the immigration flow keeps, they're going to down. But there are powerful forces in the Republican Party that want them brought down. We got Bill Archer, Bob Stump, Lamar Smith. Obviously, Alan Simpson was a big player. John Kyle, Senator Dick Shelby. These players are as big as the people you're talking about. The difference is they're not lapdogs of the Wall Street Journal and the big money interests that want cheap labor.
All the thinkers in the Republican Party are lapdogs of special interest. They believe that America...
before in this country.
Dan, listen up. They think that America is an exceptional country because we're open to immigrants, because they bring in high-tech industry in Silicon Valley is fueled by immigrant entrepreneurs. Andy Grove arrived in this country with $20 in his pocket, and he employs 40,000 Americans. That is the story of upward mobility in this country.
For Americans out there who are listening, you walk into your public school, I walk into my public school. Major public school systems in this country overwhelmed by immigration. People take you to county jails. You can't mythologize.
Is it fair to say that the economic impact of immigrants in this country is negligible?
Irrelevant to
negligible?
The question is,
do we want positive, but not a big deal?
No, not a big deal. Okay, let's talk about
this. Which is politically important because it's the feeling that they take jobs.
Let me ask you this.
Economically,
let's forget economics for a moment. Let's talk about social.
All right.
Is it correct to say, as some viewers say, viewers of the scene say that the biggest social impact of immigration is crime.
Biggest social impact of immigration: crime, congestion, overcrowding. We're going to turn the country into an overpopulated parking lot because we're moving toward 500 million people in my kid's lifetime. Major congestion. Look, the infrastructure, the local communities impacted by immigration are never consulted on the issue.
In California, where 38% of the new migrants go, or immigrants go, there is, of course, an explosive rise in youth gangs, and there is also burglary. That's driven up. Those rates have been driven up too. Would you allow that the social impact of high immigration rates is felt in the social sphere negatively, most in the area of crime?
No, I wouldn't, actually. State prison rates show that immigrants are a lesser proportion than their population. The social impacts of immigrants...
You can't name a major city in this country where Americans aren't leaving because of high impact of immigration.
I'll listen to you. You listen to me.
Can you name a city?
Right. The social impact is it strengthens families. It strengthens faith. These are folks who believe strongly in neighborhoods. It's neighborhood revitalization. Immigrants are breathing life into the American dream every day.
Americans can build the American dream on their own. We don't need an addiction to foreign labor to build the America superpower of the 21st century.
John, let me ask you this.
We're good enough to do our own job.
What's the social impact of immigration on our educational system?
You can't meet Goals 2000 if public schools are trying to accommodate people who don't speak English, illiterate in any language, need major remedial education. Frankly, we're losing the core cultural underpinnings of the curriculum. Immigrants don't learn anything.
I'll add to that. Higher dropout rates, and the cost accruing to bilingualism.
Increasing poverty.
True or false?
False. A recent study in San Diego showed that immigrants are more likely to not drop out than native-born. They learn English quickly. They want to assimilate. The story of immigrants, you're talking about peripheral issues. The basic story of immigrants is that they come here, they work hard, they contribute for themselves.
Okay, let me ask you this. There's a case to be made, as President Clinton did in his speech to the NAACP, that diversity helps us in the global economy.
Clearly. Look, a third of the...
Well, if it's that clear, how do you account for Japan, where there is unification of ethnicity?
Who do you think is going to win?
How do you account for that?
Who do you
they have a unified ethnicity.
Right, as does Germany. Who do you think is going to win in the next 20 years? The United States or Japan or Germany? I'll take my bet on America. Why? Because we have folks from every corner of the globe that can open up new markets, who understand...
How about betting on China? There are high people in this administration that feel by the year 2010, China will be the #1 economic superpower in the world.
I'll take 20 years. We're not even going to be a country. We'll be the united market.
Do you think diversity prepares us for the global economy?
Obviously not. The most competitive point in this country's history was when we were quite homogeneous, 50s, 60s, and beyond that, if we're not assimilating immigrants, if they're coming here for the wrong reason, if they're learning English just to make a buck and not be a part of the American experiment, we're making a mistake.
Before we let go of this economic bone, in the year 2010, 74 million baby boomers will be unleashed upon the population heading into Social Security. Why not have the immigrant population help pay and rescue the Social Security from bankruptcy?
I'm glad you asked me that question. I hate to think we've reached a moral bankruptcy where we're going to rely on a Ponzi scheme of trying to recruit poor, unskilled immigrants to pay for the retirement of boomers out on the golf course. If you think they're going to put up with that, we got another thing coming. The system should pay for itself. It should be self-financing. Right. It's a morally bankrupt approach.
We'll be right back with Frank Sharry and Dan Stein. Diversity is good. Therefore, we should celebrate our differences. What happened to the melting pot? Now we have cable systems, Frank, all in Spanish. Bilingualism, I guess, is pretty much the order of the day. Do you think that's good?
I think diversity and unity are out of many one. That is the foundation of America. Look, we can respect differences. People can speak Spanish or speak Chinese in their own home, but basically you have to share our values, our belief in the Constitution.
You deal on a very close interactional basis with the immigrant population all the time. What is their mentality? Is that mentality that they're returning to an enclave at night and they are resistant to the notion of assimilation? There used to be the day when we would have immigrants to this country and they would want to become American. They would want to speak the language. They would do everything they could to speak the language. Is that still the case, or are they resisting that?
Absolutely. There's lines for English classes. People want to become American. The demand for citizenship is booming. People want to vote. They want to participate in our democratic process. People don't come here because they don't want to be American. They come here because they want to be.
Do we have separate ethnic enclaves in order to escape assimilation?
Well, we're developing ethnic enclaves with this group spoil system we have, affirmative action that reinforces the group spoil system, ethnic differentiation. What the citizenship scandal showed is many immigrants can become citizens so they can bring in more relatives. If they learn English, it's to get a job, not for the right reasons. We are losing our self-confidence as a nation to demand that immigrants learn the basic...
Do you want English as an official language?
Well, we should be the official...
Do you want English as an official language?
English is the primary language. Official language, it's a ridiculousness.
Okay, we've got some compromise there. We'll be right back. Congress and the President in the recent welfare reform bill put restrictions on benefits to immigrants, both legal and illegal. What will Congress do? I presume you both think they'll do nothing between now and the end of the year. What will Congress do next year in 1998 on the matter of these benefits?
Actually, they're going to restore these benefits as part of the many of these benefits as part of the budget agreement. And
you agree with that? Congress is going to gut the welfare bill.
They're gutting
the welfare bill.
They're gutting the welfare bill regarding
gutting even the major immigration reforms now. They're recapitulating. What they're doing is fueling a backlash, a movement growing across the country against immigration because Congress isn't moving forward with effective leadership.
Right.
They're gutting the immigration control bills and they're giving welfare back to immigrants. Many people who've never paid a dime into the system.
Come on, you know better than that. What they're doing is they're going to move people to work off of welfare, but what they were moving were old ladies into the streets. And to their horror, it was blowing up in their face, so the Republicans have changed their mind and have restored many of the benefits.
I wish that was all that was going on. They're restoring disability benefits to immigrants.
But that will prevail.
Well, they're rolling back the clock.
Thanks very much, Dan Stein and Frank Sharry. We're out of time.
Thank you.